Tepe was a broke orphan who lost everything after his parents were murdered. However, when his billionaire grandfather gives him inheritance money, he ends up with too much motion, so he uses it to rizz up baddies instead. The story begins with Tepe finishing kendo practice and having breakfast with his parents when the news reports that another rich man was attacked the previous night. Seeing this, his dad asks him what he would do if he were involved in something like that, but Tepe tells him that it can't happen, because the attackers don't target brokies like them. As he continues eating, he suddenly remembers he's running late for school, so he says his goodbyes to his parents and leaves, totally unaware that it is the last time he'll ever see them alive. A few months after their death, Tepe, who was told they died in a terrible accident, visits his parents' graves to pay his respects and tell them he's about to be adopted by his billionaire grandfather. While he is at it, he spots a fancy horse carriage carrying a gorgeous, rich baddie named Charlotte being chased down the road by a bunch of thirsty scumbags driving a jeep, and is confused whether to help. With time running out, he suddenly recalls the news report about the attack on rich people, and immediately rides his bike to the road to chase the scumbags. When he catches up to them, they immediately attack him, but Tepe abandons his bike and jumps into their jeep. At this, they try to hold him hostage, but Charlotte's carriage rider and butler, Alfred, immediately hits their jeep and jumps inside it to fight the scumbags. Before long, the carriage's tires suddenly breaks and swerves, forcing Charlotte to hang on for dear life. Fortunately, as she's about to lose her grip, Tepe jumps on the carriage and grabs her. He then tries pulling her back into the carriage, but it hits the guardrails and crashes, sending them both into the forest below. Shortly after, Tepe wakes up, wondering how they survived the fall. While he's at it, he feels Charlotte's plushy melons under his hand and caresses them like a creep until she wakes up. After introducing herself, she accuses him of touching her milk factories while she was asleep, but Tepe panics and claims it was an accident, which she believes. Tepe then gets his bike back and walks Charlotte back to the road, where she kisses his cheek as a thank you present and returns to Alfred, who takes her home. Later that evening, Tepe arrives at his grandfather's house, looking dirty and unkempt. In the lobby, the guards block him from entering, but when Tepe tells them he was invited by his grandpa, they restrain him and call the police, thinking he was just another beggar spewing nonsense. Luckily, before they throw him out, Tepe's grandfather, Ishin, shows up and orders them to let him pass, claiming he's an important guest of his. Once he settles in, Tepe learns from Ishin that his parents were actually murdered, and swears to avenge them, but Ishin tells him that getting revenge will only make things worse. At this, Tepe gets pissed and asks Ishin why he's so calm about his daughter's murder, but Ishin tells him it's because he still has family left, forcing Tepe to keep quiet. Ishin then notices his dirty clothes and asks why he looks like a garbage man. When Tepe explains that it's because he saved someone on the way, Ishin chuckles, proud of his grandson, and tells him to keep the clothes on as a badge of honor. Soon after, he takes Tepe down to his secret basement party, and introduces him to all his rich friends as the successor of his billion-dollar company, Arma Group, which leaves Tepe shocked. Following this, he makes a few comments about his dirty appearance to everyone, and asks Tepe who he saved. Tepe tells him it's a girl named Charlotte, and Ishin gets even more proud, because she's an actual princess. After the announcement, Ishin makes Tepe change into better clothes and takes him back to his office to discuss. There, Tepe crashes out at Ishin for suddenly naming him successor, when all he wanted was revenge. Hearing this, Ishin calms Tepe and tells him that the announcement was all a setup to lure out the people who murdered his mother, his previous successor, as he's pretty sure they'll also try to silence Tepe. As his explanation sinks in, Ishin urges Tepe to be conscious of those who approach him henceforth and to form alliances with like-minded families, because he'll need them in the days to come. With that said, Tepe returns to the party and is immediately swarmed by the butt-kissers, who want to be on his good side. Just then, his personal escort, Vincent, introduces him to one of his daughters, Moria. Unfortunately, after welcoming Tepe to his new life as an aristocrat, Vincent leaves him at the mercy of the bootlickers the moment he spots Ishin nearby. Shortly after, Tepe escapes to a quiet room and is attended to by his personal maid, Yu, who serves him a drink. As he thanks her, he suddenly spots a girl's sword training outside his window and is immediately fascinated by her strokes, because he's also a kendo practitioner. While she continues practicing, he picks up his training sword and rushes outside to spar with her. There, he applauds her insane skills, but the lady, Sylvia, mistakes him for a ruffian and attacks him. Naturally, Tepe draws his sword and defends against her attacks, but just as Sylvia starts overpowering him, Ishin and Vincent show up, introduce Sylvia as Vincent's eldest daughter, and tell them that they'll be getting married someday, leaving Teppei shocked. Later that night, Teppei dozes off on Yu's cushy melons as Ishin drives them to their new home. Along the way, Ishin admits he feels remorseful for suddenly trying to reshape her life and Teppei's to fit his plans. However, Yu tells him that people like her and Teppei sometimes have no choice but to choose their path within whatever environment they find themselves in, and Ishin decides to take her words to heart by observing Teppei's decisions. Moments later, when they arrive at the mansion, Teppei steps out of the car and recoils in shock at how massive his new home is. After Ishin leaves, Yu takes him inside, and his brain lags out when he sees the army of maids waiting to serve him. Without wasting much time, Yu introduces him to all of them. Then she takes him to his new room, which is larger than most of your living rooms, and urges him to call her whenever he needs anything. Afterwards, she leaves, and Teppei flops onto the bed, as he thinks back to his chaotic meetings with Charlotte and Sylvia, especially his fight with Sylvia. Soon after, Yu brings him some tea, but as she's about to leave, Teppei calls her back and asks if his arranged marriage with Sylvia is actually normal for rich people. When Yu tells him she's not really sure, he whines over not knowing Sylvia enough to marry her. Hearing this, Yu asks if it is really that important to know someone that deeply before marrying them. In response, Teppei tells her that it is not only important, but that he also sensed a certain sadness in her heart when he clashed swords with her. While he's busy yapping, he notices the confusion on Yu's face, so he shuts up and asks her if he can decline the arranged marriage. The moment Yu tells him that he actually can, Teppei smiles and decides to see what happens next. The following morning, his maid army prepares him for his new school and has him ride in his grandpa's limo, with Yu as his student partner. On the way, Yu notices Teppei feeling nervous and tries to comfort him, but it doesn't work. After a brief silence, Teppei spots a power bike racing past their limo, tells Yu about his glory days as a Mad Max wannabe, and asks if he's allowed to ride bikes. Yu says he can't because the risk of crashing is high. So to resolve it, Teppei urges her to talk to some of Ishin's tech guys to help him design a bike that won't fall, and she promises to do that later. Moments later, when they arrive at the school, a small crowd of curious students suddenly gathers around him. Confused, he asks Yu why they're staring at him, and she says it's all because they're shocked to see an Arima like him in the flesh. At this, Teppei freaks out as his anxiety shoots through the roof, and runs away in fear to get some air. A few minutes later, he stops to take a breather at the school's fancy cafeteria, and admires the creativity behind it. As he's about to leave, he suddenly bumps into the social club president, Seika, and hits his forehead on the ground. Seconds later, Seika gets up, notices the huge bump on Teppei's forehead, and scolds him, without even realizing that our man of culture is busy counting the stripes on her soft honeypot protector. Not long after, her two henchwomen also join her to scold Teppei, but rather than defending himself, he observes the patterns on their undies too. Shortly after, Seika has him stand up, then checks his shirt and jacket, compliments some of his wardrobe choices, and urges him to always remember that appearance is everything at their school. As she opens his shirt to check his belt, her henchwomen suddenly remind her not to get too close to Teppei, as he might be a freshman, and Seika realizes that they might be right. After getting her hands off him, she asks if he's a freshman, but when Teppei tells her he's a transfer student, she composes herself, apologizes for her clumsiness earlier, and leaves with her minions. Seconds later, Yu shows up, relieved to have finally found him, and shows him around the school. After the tour, Teppei gets to his new class, introduces himself, and sighs as his teacher and classmates fawn over him just because he is an Arima. After homeroom, a zesty loser named Nezu approaches Teppei and tries to introduce himself, but before Teppei recognizes him, a bunch of other students immediately show up, slap Nezu out of their way, and desperately try to get acquainted with the biggest nepo baby in their entire school. While they're at it, Charlotte, who also happens to attend the same school, walks past Teppei's class and beams with a smile when she spots Teppei in the midst of the bootlickers. To make things more fun, she sneaks behind the guy, covers his eyes with her hands, and tells him to guess who she is. At first, Teppei gets confused, but when Charlotte squishes her pleasure pillows against his back, he immediately recognizes that feeling and realizes that she's the one. Afterwards, she gets back in front of him, reunites with him, and thanks him for saving her life back then. When Teppei tries to act modest, the happy-go-lucky princess throws herself on him, causing him to lose balance and accidentally pin her on the desk, with his schlong dangerously massaging her cookie. Around that same time, Sylvia walks into his class to pay her respects to him as her fiancé. However, when she spots the dangerous position Teppei and Charlotte are in, she gets very disappointed and runs away, leaving Teppei shell-shocked. Later on, Seika finds out from her minions that the guy she bumped into earlier is actually an Arima. Pissed, she grabs one of her girls and shakes her vigorously, as she regrets ever being nice to him, whom she immediately clocks as a spoiled brat. Thankfully, before she murders the other girl, she comports herself and swears to show Teppei who's boss, so he doesn't think he can do whatever he wants just because he's an erema. Meanwhile, Teppei is seen having a conversation with Charlotte in an outdoor cafe, when he suddenly spots Sylvia walking to the fencing hall for her training. As he gazes at her, Charlotte asks if he knows Sylvia that well, and he tells her that Sylvia is his fiancée. Following this, Teppei tells Charlotte just how bad she must have felt after seeing them both in that position earlier. Hearing this, Charlotte grabs him and forces him to go to the fencing hall with her, so that he can make up with Sylvia. Getting there, Teppei spots Sylvia sparring, and immediately notices a few issues with her form. He then tells Charlotte that it's probably because Sylvia feels lonely, so Charlotte calls Sylvia and challenges her to fight Teppei, and Sylvia agrees. Around the same time, Seika discovers that Teppei is about to duel Sylvia in a fencing match, so she immediately rushes to the fencing hall with her minions to watch Teppei lose. As the match begins, Sylvia lands a strike on Teppei, winning the fight. Although this makes haters like Seika happy to see him lose, Sylvia urges Teppei to fight her using his natural style, kendo. Just then, Yu, who had also found out about the duel, shows up in the hall with Teppei's training sword and gives it to him. Shortly after, Sylvia removes her helmet, as Teppei did, returns to the mini-arena, and tells Teppei that the first person to land a strike wins the duel, which Teppei agrees to. After more banter from both sides, the battle begins, and the duo lunges at each other. To everyone's surprise, they both land clean strikes at the same time, ending the match in a draw. However, rather than accepting the results, Teppei admits defeat just to make Sylvia feel better, and extends a handshake of friendship to her, hoping to know her better before he rejects her. As Sylvia accepts his handshake, Seika gets very pissed that Teppei wasn't humiliated and leaves, complaining. At that very moment, Charlotte argues with Teppei so she can hold his kendo sword, but in the hubbub, the duo trips and she falls on top of Teppei, her honeypot right on his natural sword. When Sylvia obviously gets pissed at them, Charlotte, who didn't see anything wrong with their pose, literally starts riding Teppei's rocket launcher with her soft vanilla buns and vertical lips, leaving Teppei with a glorified happy ending. On their way home, Teppei asks Yu why Sylvia and Charlotte are telling him to join the social club, and she tells him it's because that's where the most accomplished students of their school come together. Unfazed, Teppei asks Yu if she's also planning to join, but Yu tells him she's not qualified because she's not from a wealthy family like him. The following day in school, Charlotte and Sylvia take Teppei to see the social club building. As Teppei marvels at how large the building actually is, the girls take him into the dining hall, so he can be acquainted with the way they do things. There, a girl approaches them, greets Sylvia and Charlotte, and asks them to introduce their new friend. When Charlotte tells the girl that they're trying to get Teppei to join the club, Seika and her minions, who overheard them, immediately rush forward and demand to know why Teppei, the bane of their existence, and Sylvia, an August visitor, are both there. Insulted by their snide remarks, Sylvia dares them to say what's truly on their minds, and Seika accuses her of wagging her tail to Teppei just because he's an erema. Thankfully, Sylvia is more mature than the three idiots with low intelligence, but while she shuts down Seikei's insults, Seikei ignores her, turns to Teppei, and tells him not to think entering her club will be easy. Since she's the president, Seika invokes her power, yapping that she has the right to uphold the club's traditions. Then she moves on to attack Teppei's former life, as the son of a noodle shop owner before his parents died. At this, Teppei switches up and tries to correct her insensitive remarks, but Seika does a complete 180 and starts accusing him of raising his voice when someone tells him the truth. As punishment for raising his voice at her, Seika tells him to learn the proper etiquette he needs to be a textbook aristocrat, invites him to a party the club will be hosting the following week, and promises to recognize his request to join the club if he can show her adequate manners by then, which Teppei agrees to. Shortly after the altercation with Seika, Teppei gets right down to learning how to dip tea and walk like an aristocrat, with Yu and Charlotte as his teachers. But as expected, he fails woefully every time. The following day, Teppei practices ballroom dancing with Charlotte. While doing so, he gets too close to her orange factories and gets rock hard down there, not even realizing that Seika is watching his every move. Later that night, Yu serves him coffee in his room, while he works at his desk and asks why he can't sleep. As Teppei explains that it's because he still has a lot to do, he suddenly remembers how his mom used to serve him coffee back when he was too busy to sleep, and tells Yu that she reminds him of her. Hearing this, Yu gasps in shock, but Teppei starts yapping about not knowing why he's even choosing to be Ishin's successor, or even attending this weird school. To help clear his mind, Yu tells him he's there to find some allies first. But when Teppei tells her he's not a people person, she assures him that she, Sylvia, and Charlotte are already his allies, as they'll be more than happy to serve the successor of the almighty Arima conglomerate. At this, Teppei asks Yu if becoming his personal maid is really something to be happy about, and she tells him she is glad to watch the man Ishin, her personal savior, is grooming to become the new boss mature. The following day, Teppei practices dancing with Charlotte and gets too close to her again. As he bends forward to hide his hard staff bulging from his pants, Seika, who is eavesdropping on them, walks away pissed, and learns from two random students in the hallway that she's being seen as a villain, jealous of Teppei. Later on, Sylvia and Yu join Charlotte and shift to tea-drinking practice. After Teppei fails again, Sylvia suggests that they fight to take the edge off. But before they get to that, Yu suddenly figures out a shortcut to helping Teppei master his etiquette training quickly. She tells him to incorporate the elegance he learned in martial arts into the etiquette he's trying to learn now, and Teppei decides to try it out. A few days later, Teppei dresses up, arrives at the social club with Charlotte and Sylvia for the party, listens to Seika's wicked witch speech at the entrance, and walks into the building, leaving Yu outside. A few moments later, Seika gives her opening speech as the club president and has the school's orchestra start the party with a performance. During the musical performance, Teppei dances with Charlotte, sweeping her off her feet with his graceful warmth and elegant new steps. After the party, Seika calls Teppei and the other two, recognizes the improvements in his etiquette in such a short time, and tells him that he has to organize a party in 2 weeks to fully convince her that he's ready to be a social club member. A few days after the party, Teppei meets with Sylvia and Charlotte, who ask him if he's already decided on the theme of his party, and tells them that he hasn't the slightest clue how to hold one, mainly because he's never attended a rich man's party before. Hearing this, Sylvia gets confused and asks him what kind of parties he's used to attending, but Teppei tells them he mostly attends Christmas and birthdays for the brokies. Right before their conversation continues, Teppei notices that Seika hasn't been around lately, so he changes the subject to avoid telling the Nepo babies about his brokey days and instead accuses Seika of neglecting her duties as the club's president, right in front of her minions. To defend their almighty queen, the two annoying twerps call Teppei a pig, which hits him hard, and explain that Seika is actually the only daughter of a large corporation's president. Not only that, but they also tell him she's the youngest designer and model for the popular brand, signed Rose, which Teppei actually recognizes. Shocked to find out how important Seika actually is, Teppei showers Seika in praise for not going around and bragging, despite being that important. However, as he moves on to accuse her of making a big fuss over everything, the devil herself, Seika, shows up at the entrance and crashes out at Teppei for gossiping about her behind her back. After that, she calls the loser from earlier, Nezu, to remind him that she'll be counting on his help the following day, and Nezu immediately starts twitching like a disgusting simp. At one point, Seika gets fed up with the idiot's irritating display of madness, so she grabs him by the shirt and crashes into both him and Teppei as well. Once she's done getting pissed, Nezu gets up and tells everyone that she picked him to participate in the presentation of signed Rose's new collection at a high-class hotel. Hearing this, Seika gets pissed again and slaps the poor guy against the wall. Then, she picks up where he left off, telling everyone that there's going to be an interview after the presentation to hear about her school life from one of her school friends, and that she picked the dimwit to answer their questions like a good boy. Later that night, while on their way home, Teppei asks Yu if she knows why Seika hates him as an Arima so much. Although Yu claims not to know, she advises him to ask his grandfather directly, so Teppei immediately tells the driver to take them to Ishin's house, so he can hear what he has to say. Moments later, when they arrive at Ishin's house, he takes Teppei to his office and asks him about school and his relationship with Sylvia. In response, Teppei tells him that he's trying his best at school, but as for his relationship with Sylvia, he's still getting to know her as friends first. Satisfied with his response, Ishin urges him to explain why he's truly in his place by this time, and Teppei gets right to asking. The following day at school, Yu spots Teppei sitting alone in class and delivers a sealed letter to him. After collecting it, Teppei is busy deciding how he's going to give it to Seika, when Nezu suddenly shows up looking sick, with a huge booger hanging on his nose. Confused, Yu and Teppei try to figure out what the heck's going on with him, but the guy keeps twirling and tweaking his zesty body around, until he releases a cold sneeze that sends chills down into their spine. Hours later, after classes, Nezu wakes from his seat and continues his weird, zesty madness around Teppei, until he finally collapses from his fever. Seeing this, Teipei tucks the fool in the infirmary bed to get some rest and rushes to the hotel where the interview will be held. Upon arrival, he joins the crowd and witnesses Seika's presentation for their new products. After the presentation, Seika takes him to the ladies' changing room, where Teipei nearly drowns in a sea of walking plush melons and crashes out when Teipei tells her what happened to Nezu. Since there's literally no time left to make any changes, Seika lets Teipei be her interview partner and quickly rushes to complete the final segment of her show. After that, she changes clothes and takes Teipei to the venue. There, she exchanges pleasantries with the host and the photographer, and beats poor Teipei, who just stands there looking like a fool, into taking a cover photo with her. Following that, the interview begins, and the host directs most of her questions at Teipei, who keeps spacing out and acting clueless until Seika either stomps on his leg to snap him out of it, or answers some of the questions for him. After some more back-and-forth questioning about Seika's role at the social club, the host asks Teipei to tell the audience the impression Seika leaves at school. Initially, Teipei tells everyone the truth, that Seika's an impulsive know-it-all who easily goes overboard. However, after getting his leg stomped so many times by the girl, he changes the narrative of his response and tells the host that Seika's actually someone who's super confident that she's walking the right path and ensures she carries everyone along with her. As he continues complimenting her, Seika is so impressed by Teipei's compliments that she forgets their beef and smiles at Teipei like a love-struck girl. Soon after, the interview ends, and Seika takes Teipei out to dinner to cool off before returning home. While they munch on their food, Teipei tells her that he now understands why she hates the Arima family so much. Apparently, Ishin and Seika's grandfather used to be close business partners until Seika's grandpa shagged Ishin's then-wife because he was neglecting her, which ultimately led Ishin to dissolve all business relations with Seika's company when he found out. Upon hearing this, Seika asks Teipei why he's telling her the same story she's heard 1,000 times now. And Teipei says it's because he recently found out that his grandfather has made it impossible for her to sell her products at his department stores, all because he still holds a grudge against her family. At this, Seika crashes out really badly, as this has given her father's company, albeit an honest one, a bad reputation. Following this, she starts swearing to expose Ishin's ignorance to the whole world, but Teipei hands her the letter and urges her to open it. Upon reading it, she realizes that Teipei somehow convinced his grandfather, who he claims has changed, to make him in charge of the stores the previous day, all just to make Seika forgive them for their trespasses. Impressed by his maturity, Seika's mood immediately changes, and she accepts Teipei's new terms and conditions, permanently ending their beef. The next day, while on their way to school, Yu praises Teipei for resolving the matter with Seika the previous day, but Teipei tells her he didn't really do much because his grandfather did most of the work. Having said all that, a brief silence ensues, and Yu sheepishly tries to comfort Teipei. When they arrive at school, Nezu immediately frolics all over Teipei, thanking him for helping him with the interview with Seika, and asking if he has any plans for the upcoming holiday. When Teipei confirms from Yu that he doesn't, Nezu follows him to his seat and begs him to let him repay the help. Hearing this, Teipei urges him not to worry too much about the help, but when Nezu gets way too close to his face, even threatening to kiss him, poor Teipei gives up and accepts the help. Gladdened by the news, Nezu tells Teipei he'll help him plan the party Seika wants him to do, and Teipei immediately welcomes the help. Following this, Nezu whispers in Teipei's ear, advising that they call in some strippers to make things more fun. Although Teipei refuses to do this at first, when he listens to the nasty things Nezu plans on doing to those poor ladies, he immediately signs up for a stripper party. Thankfully, before both dimwits can even move on with their plan, Charlotte shows up, startling both of them, and asks Teipei if he has any plans for the upcoming holidays. In response, Teipei urges her to ask Sylvia first. Almost immediately, Charlotte rushes to the social club building and asks Sylvia, who's just chilling, if she can borrow Teipei for the holidays. Confused, Sylvia asks her why she's coming to her for permission, and Charlotte says it's because she's his fiancée. Hearing this, Sylvia gets flustered and tells Charlotte that she hasn't agreed to the proposal or made any progress with Teipei yet. Believing her, Charlotte decides to take Teipei out, but she urges her to keep it a secret from Alfred, and Sylvia agrees. Later that night, as Sylvia, Vincent, and her little sister, Maria, have some tea, Vincent notices the silence at the table and asks Sylvia why she isn't talking about Teipei. Hearing this, Sylvia tries to deny that she ever talks about him, but when Maria mimics exactly how she fawns over him every night, she gets very angry and tells Vincent that she's just good friends with him. Moving on, Vincent talks about their home country, Firmish, and tells Sylvia, who is worried she might not be able to return if she marries Tepe, that it is okay for her to forget about their homeland if that makes her happy. At that point, Sylvia says she is not feeling well and leaves the table to get to her room. Meanwhile, Charlotte is in her room, wearing totally see-through clothes, as she desperately tries to convince Alfred that she's not going out with Tepe. As expected, Alfred doesn't believe her, but as Charlotte continues trying to convince him, she gets a call from Sylvia, picks up, and says hi. Initially, Sylvia doesn't say anything, but after much persuasion from Charlotte, she just tells her to say hi to Tepe for her and hangs up, wondering why she even called in the first place. A few days later, Tepe meets up with the slender and curvy Charlotte for their date, and jokes around with her for a few seconds, before hopping on her father's private jet to fly to Osaka that same afternoon. When they get there, she immediately rushes to a random sidewalk with a good view of the sea and breathes in the refreshing air. Soon after, she tells Tepe how happy she is to finally be alone, without Alfred or her bodyguards constantly controlling her, and Tepe, who promises to treat her like a normal girl for the day, not a princess, asks if it's okay to be without bodyguards. In response, Charlotte says she knows that he'll protect her, just like he did back then, if anything happens to her, and Tepe figures she's right. Over the next few hours, the duo visits the mall, the aquarium, and a petting zoo, and even tries some takoyaki, which Charlotte absolutely loves, since it is her first time eating it. Later that evening, the duo sits on a random bench outside, where Charlotte asks Tepe if his personal chef makes him takoyaki. When Tepe tells her that his mom used to cook for him, Charlotte showers his mom with praise and wishes she could try out her cooking one day. As Tepe tells her that her cooking is the best, Charlotte suddenly spots the Ferris wheel in the distance and forces Tepe to ride it with her. Moments later, while they ride the wheel, Charlotte tells Tepe that she sees him as a wonderful person because she can tell he really loves his mother from the way he talks about her. Hearing this, Tepe gets a little emotional and tells her that he really loved his mother. Confused, Charlotte asks him why he says loved, and he tells her that it's because she died with her father not long ago, which explains why Ishin adopted him. After a brief silence, Charlotte gets really close to the poor guy and warns him never to say he loved his parents anymore, because no matter what happens, they're still in his heart. Following this, Charlotte and Tepe slowly draw closer, but unfortunately, as they're about to take each other's V-card in the wheel, Charlotte catches a cold, blames it on the coming winter, and asks Tepe if he's really going to marry Sylvia. When Tepe tells her he still doesn't know, Charlotte assures him that Sylvia is a good girl, then goes on to tell him a little about their shared past as friends. On a particular day, little Charlotte saw stubborn little Sylvia scribbling something on the pavement, and scolded her for disobeying their elders, without even realizing that she'd lost her mother in a motor accident earlier. Later that day, Vincent receives a letter from little Sylvia's butler, whom she gave to submit to God. After reading its contents, Vincent burst into tears, as it turns out that Sylvia had promised to be a good girl if God brought back her mom, which is why she was scribbling something on the pavement outside. Soon after, little Sylvia came in, saw her father crying, and hugged him to stop him from crying, without realizing that Charlotte saw everything. Upon hearing everything, Tepe realizes just how lonely, emotional, and restrictive a rich person's life is, and expresses his feelings to Charlotte. Later on, when they get off the wheel, Tepe suddenly has an idea for his party to entertain everyone, and thanks Charlotte for helping him realize it. Following that, Charlotte latches onto his back and urges him to promise never to forget her, ever. Confused, Tepe asks why she's suddenly being strange, but Charlotte quickly snaps out of it and jests around. Over the next few days, Tepe goes around his school, telling and inviting you, Charlotte, Sylvia, Seika, and even Nezo to his unique party. On day, he has them all gather at a crowded station to take a trip to the countryside for the party. Upon arriving at the station, Sylvia and Charlotte freak out over the hubbub, seeing as aristocrats like them have never really ridden public trains before. However, before they embarrass themselves, Tepe quickly shows up with a megaphone, welcomes them to his unique party, and assures them they'll be taking a typical vacation for ordinary people, an overnight stay at a hot spring resort. Hearing this, Sylvia asks him why he chose to host the vacation at a hot spring, as she finds it a bit inadequate for a party, but Tepe cooks up a bogus excuse and tells them he wants to do something extraordinary. Satisfied with his response, Sylvia drops the issue, but not long after, she and Charlotte start freaking out again when they see so many people entering the station with prepaid tickets. Considering their background, it is natural for them to be shocked by such systems, but to show them how it works, Seika passes through the ticket booth with ease, leaving them stunned. Moments later, they all board the next train to the countryside and spend the entire time discussing their lives as aristocrats. Hours later, when they arrive at the hot springs, the host shows both genders to their separate rooms, but Yu refuses to join the girls because she feels out of place. Seeing this, Etiquette tells her to try getting along with the girls, but when Yu explains the reason for her nervousness, he reassures her that it is fine for her to relax around them, and she agrees. Not long after, Etiquette joins Nezu and two other guys in their shared room for a secret meeting to discuss Operation Peeping Tom. After the niceties, one of the guys asks him if it's legal for them to spy on the girls while they're bathing, but Etiquette assures them that it is, as they're only taking on their fallen senior's legacy. At this, the spineless cowards all remind Etiquette that things can really go wrong if they're caught or reported, since they're all from prominent families, but even still, Etiquette reassures them that his luck and determination to gaze upon the ladies' succulent milk factories and cakes exceed all. Believing him, Nezu and the other two start tweaking as they beg Etiquette to share his natural liquids, and his luck with them, and Etiquette agrees, all just to make them all lucky perverts. Later that evening, the girls visit the changing room and undress themselves to give a show for cultured men. While they're at it, Yu gets cold feet, as she feels exposing her pleasure pillows is wrong, but Charlotte, who's more than happy to flaunt her natural bouncy melons, assures her that she's doing okay. Shortly after getting changed, the girls waltz into the hot springs and immediately start washing and discussing random girl stuff with each other. Amid their discussion, poor Seika realizes that she's the only flat-chested warrior in an army of humongous double-D milk juges and gets insanely insecure and jealous. Around that same time, the perverts on the other side of the bath spend their first few minutes there, fantasizing over the nasty things the girls must be doing at their end. Once they're done, they do their best to listen to the sounds from the walls separating the two sides, and suddenly hear strange, happy, and soft noises coming from the other side, almost as if the girls were touching each other. Eventually, one of them decides he can take the torture anymore, so he removes his towel, clamps himself to the wooden wall, with his junk out, and accidentally turns the wall over to the other side. The moment the girls spot him, they beat him black and blue, and turn the wooden wall back to its correct position. After seeing the terrible condition the poor guy is in, Etiquette, Nezu, and the last guy all salute his sacrifice and promise to continue without him. Moments later, as the girls complain about the unnaturally huge fog in there, Etiquette and the boys get down on all fours and slowly crawl wearing nothing but towels, all the way to the girls' baths. However, as they get much closer to the bath, the fat idiot amongst them falls into a floor trap, leaving Etiquette and Nezu to finish the job. After mourning the loss of their second warrior, Etiquette turns back to encourage Nezu to do well, but to his shock, he soon realizes that Nezu has already fallen through a floor trap as well. With a heavy heart, Etiquette boldly pressed on, carrying the hopes and dreams of his fallen comrades. Unfortunately for him, before he reached the promised land, he accidentally stepped on a trap button and was hurled several feet into the sky. By nightfall, the girls gather at the edges of their baths to stargaze. But just then, Etiquette dives into their bath and finishes the mission. After a huge commotion, the girls gather all the boys in one place, force them to kneel before them, and scold them all for being such dirty pigs. Just as Seika's about to punish them, Charlotte and Yu tell her to take it easy on them, so she decides to hold a ping-pong match between Etiquette and Sylvia, claiming that if Etiquette wins, she'll overlook their sins. After some small talk, the match begins, but Etiquette plays dirty, calling it commoner's table tennis, and urges Sylvia to also try playing dirty, if she can. Hearing this, Sylvia reveals her huge melons, causing Etiquette's natural staff to grow in size, and returns the favor. After the ping-pong match, they do other fun things, and enjoy themselves for the rest of the night. Around midnight, the girls stay up chatting about random things. However, while they're at it, Charlotte asks Seika what she thinks about Etiquette's party. Although she tells her that she can't really call it a party, she admits she had fun and promises to approve his request to join the social club the following week. Hearing this, one of the girls teases her for being far less of a stuck-up jerk than she's always been, and Charlotte says it's because Etiquette's already changing all of their lives. Upon hearing this, the others agree that Etiquette has changed their lives one way or another, and conclude that they like him. As their conversation continues, Charlotte asks Sylvia if she's still going to marry Etiquette, but she says she's still taking things slow with him for now. At this, Charlotte tells the others that very soon, Etiquette will fall in love with a lucky girl. But rather than cringing at the thought of that, they collectively agree not to be resentful or jealous of the lady he eventually falls in love with, so that the poor fool doesn't get bothered. A few days later, two dorks from Arma Mechanics, whom you employed earlier, show up at Etiquette's house with a new bike that they guarantee will never fall. When Etiquette asks how they managed to keep the balance, They tell him that they added 4 stripper legs to the front and rear wheels to keep it up. However, instead of complimenting them, Teppei is completely disgusted by their design choices and sends them packing. Soon after, Teppei gets to school and jokes around with Charlotte in the hallway, without even realizing that jealous Sylvia was right behind the corner, eavesdropping on their conversation and doing her best to keep the promise she and the other girls made the other night. As she walks away in silence, Alfred suddenly busts into the school, his spidey senses tingling, and calls Teppei a noxious insect for stealing Charlotte from him. Hearing this, Charlotte tells Alfred that she likes Teppei, not the other way around, and these words nearly send poor Alfred into his final heart attack. Pissed and jealous to hear this, he begs Charlotte to take back her words to avoid a misunderstanding, but when she chooses not to, he loses his cool and runs straight for Teppei to have his head. Scared for his life, Teppei grabs Charlotte and runs for several minutes until Alfred tires. Then they keep running until they get to the garden, where Alfred can't see them. Soon after catching their breath, Charlotte tells Teppei that she sprained her ankle from the run, and Teppei immediately carries her like Prince Charming and apologizes for manhandling her. Although Charlotte assures him it wasn't all his fault, she tells him to take her to eat at Arima Hills, one of his grandpa's 5-star hotels, to make it up to her, and Teppei promises to do that. Moments later, while Teppei and Charlotte are at the infirmary treating the sprain, they, along with the entire school, spot many rose petals falling from the sky, and quickly rush outside to investigate what's going on. There, they spot a blimp floating across the sky and gasp in amazement. Before long, a blonde dude named Hartman, who also happens to be a rich investor and business tycoon from Charlotte's country, Hazelrink, jumps out of the blimp with a chute behind him and lands safely on the balcony where Charlotte and Teppei are. Following his dramatic landing, he approaches Charlotte, kisses her hand, and introduces her to Teppei, whom he apparently knows, as his fiancée, leaving Teppei shocked. Later that evening, Hartman thanks Seika, Teppei, and Sylvia for giving him a tour around their school. Then he kisses Charlotte's hands and leaves for his meeting with Ishin. Afterwards, Sylvia confronts Charlotte for not telling any of them she was already betrothed, but Charlotte, who's apparently saddened by all this, begs her not to question her about that now. After Sylvia leaves, Teppei lightens up the mood by promising Charlotte he will prepare her favorite meal for their date in Arima Hills, and Charlotte hugs him tightly, assuring him she'll be waiting for his call. Later that night, after taking a bath, Sylvia eavesdrops on her father in his office as he crashes out at someone over the phone about a troubling new political development between her home country, Firmish, and Charlotte's home country, Hazelrink, which shares a border, and decides to investigate. The following morning in school, she calls Charlotte to the social club building and asks if she knows that someone is currently building a secret nuclear weapon facility on the border between their home countries. Confused, Charlotte assures Sylvia that neither she nor her father knows about this, and Sylvia concludes that a third country, of which they don't yet know, must be the one doing this, just to destroy the relationship between the nations. As she continues explaining, she suddenly hears someone behind the entrance door, eavesdropping on them, and calls them out. Realizing she's been caught, Seika walks out, admits that she heard everything, and promises never to tell anyone. Afterwards, she tells Sylvia that her grandpa said something bad would happen at Arima Hills later that night. But when Sylvia asks her what it is, she says she doesn't really know. Later on, Charlotte receives a text from Teppei begging her to come to Arima Hills that night, claiming he has something to tell her, and she immediately believes it, without even realizing she's being watched. By nightfall, Teppei visits Arima Hills and is seen with the receptionist making reservations for his later date with Charlotte, when Hartman and his red-headed secretary, Josephine, suddenly pass by and call his attention. Seeing them, Teppei leaves his phone on the receptionist's desk and walks over to them to exchange pleasantries. After some back-and-forth jokes, they head to Ishin's office, and Teppei returns to the receptionist to continue yapping. Around that same time, Charlotte receives a text from Teppei to meet him in the suite in an hour. But while she rejoices, Ishin joins Hartman in his office for their meeting and waits for Vincent, their last guest, to join them as Firmish's representative. Once Vincent arrives, Hartman begins by discussing a collaboration between Firmish, Hazelrink, and the Arima Group to build a new resort at the Hazelrink-Firmish border. Hearing this, Vincent reports that he recently found out that a third country has gotten involved in their collaboration and plans to destroy their relationship from the ground up. Curious, Ishin asks if he knows which country, but Vincent says the guy didn't tell him any more than that. With that being said, the trio spends the next few minutes brainstorming the enemy's thought process, but eventually, they all agree that their plan seems too stupid to even be true. Nevertheless, Ishin reminds Hartman who happens to be the youngest amongst them, never to let his guard down, because with great power comes great responsibility. Moving on, the trio discusses the dangers posed by this latest development, including mass hysteria and irreparable damage to Arima Group's reputation. Also, given how quickly social media is covering this growing development, Ishin knows they need a solution to this as quickly as possible. However, while they think of one, Sylvia finds out that Vincent is at Arima Hills. Charlotte arrives there in a taxi, and Seika happens to be selecting clothes, as if she were preparing for a party. As for Tepe, he's still at his mansion, doing his kendo training, when he suddenly receives a message from Charlotte, who is already in the suite, waiting for him. He calls her back, but as poor Charlotte's about to pick up, the electricity in the entire hotel goes out, and Tepe immediately receives a mysterious message from the scumbags who murdered his parents, claiming that they're coming after his lover, too, leaving Tepe shocked. Moments after the blackout, spies from the shadow agency behind the attack quietly take out the building's security and infiltrate the building like ninjas. Within seconds, they barge into Ishin's room and hold him, Hartman, and Vincent hostage, with Josephine as their leader. Shocked, Hartman questions Josephine to know why she's working for the enemy, but Josephine tells him that he's the fool for not noticing her sooner. Just then, Ishin gets through to Yu on a call, informs her of the attack, and urges her to give Tepe his regards. As he hangs up, Josephine and her men notice him talking to someone, so they threaten to off him if he continues pulling stupid tricks, and Ishin promises to be a good boy. Not long after receiving Ishin's call, Yu immediately contacts every top cybersecurity personnel under Ishin's payroll to investigate the agency behind the attack. While they get on it, a shadow approaches Charlotte in the suite and pins her body to the bed, with his hand on her mouth. When Charlotte starts freaking out, he tells her to keep calm and avoid causing trouble for them, so they won't be forced to shoot her, and she obliges. With this, the dude lets her go, while doing his best to ignore his two perverse partners and has them tie Charlotte up. After that, he has one of them bring out a small monitor, so they can watch the media broadcast the news about the attack to the nation, only to realize that the media is broadcasting only the mysterious blackout, not the attack. Confused, the trio, including Josephine and her minions, wonder who could be intercepting their communication and censoring the event. In secret, Ishin knows that it's definitely Seika's doing, but he keeps quiet and enjoys watching the idiots panic. Not long after, one of their agents discovers that someone is trying to hack into the building's central control room from outside and reports to Josephine. While she worries about that too, Yu, who's way back in Tepe's house, is seen typing furiously into a compact supercomputer like Brainiac and doing her best to hack into the central control room without being seen, all while Tepe watches in awe. Before long, Yu gets discovered by the enemy's tech guy, who tries to hack her back, but rather than giving up, she continues hacking until she outhacks the hacker and gains access to the surveillance cameras in the building. Afterwards, she and Tepe locate Ishin, Vincent, and Charlotte, all being held hostage by the enemy. But unfortunately for them, before they can make out anything from the videos, the enemy hacker regains control and infects Yu's computer with a timed virus. With time running out, Tepe decides to go to the hotel to save his people himself. However, since he obviously can't take the normal route, he calls back those two nerds who built him a bike with stripper legs and decides to ride that embarrassing bike to the hotel. Moments later, as he's about to leave, Sylvia shows up, tells him she knows about the situation at the hotel, and tells him she'll be riding with him. With no time left to argue, Tepe has Sylvia dress up in some tight spandex overalls and immediately drives her out of his house. The moment he hits the road, about 3 enemy bikers chase after them, shooting 44 Magnum rounds at them. At first, Sylvia deflects some of the bullets with her sword, but when the bike staggers, she pauses to regain her balance. Just then, Yu phones Tepe, telling him to press a certain blue button, which he does. Almost immediately, the 2 rear stripper legs develop jet boosters, fly towards the enemy bikers, and knock down 2 of them. Seeing this, Tepe presses another button, and thankfully, the front legs also pop up and crush the last guy's nutsack. Meanwhile, Charlotte asks her assailant why they're trying so hard to tarnish Arima Group's image, but the doofus tells her that it's all because rich people like them make poor idiots like him suffer. About 30 minutes later, Tepe and Sylvia arrive at the building and carefully sneak inside, keeping in constant contact with Yu for updates on the situation there. Soon after getting the floor number in the rooms where Charlotte, Ishin, and Vincent are being kept, Tepe and Sylvia immediately get into action, taking out a few guards on the way, all to save them in time. On their way up, they run into the special police, who promise to help them contain the situation and immediately welcome their help. However, as they're about to continue moving, they suddenly hear fireworks outside the building, and a set of idols, starting a live band concert not too far away to keep the media distracted from the attack. Confused, Teppei and Sylvia rush out to the balcony to investigate what's happening. But just then, Seika arrives at the same balcony in a helicopter, tells them about her plan, and invites them on, so they can continue looking for Charlotte. Meanwhile, Hartman pins Josephine to the ground while she's distracted by the concert to buy the others some time to escape. Unfortunately, before they escape, Josephine shoots him in the chest with her gun and unalives him. Elsewhere, Charlotte tries to reason with the useless piece of trash who captured her, swearing on her title as a princess to help him in the future. But as expected, the low-intelligence Nimrod calls her out for saying nonsense, and continues doing this thing. Moments later, Yu regains access to the disaster prevention system, locks the enemy inside the building to give the police an advantage, and informs Teppei and both girls of a way to get to Charlotte and their parents from the roof. Upon hearing this, Seika has her pilot fly them up to the roof. Once there, Sylvia jumps off with her sword in hand, knocks down the two guards standing there, and continues descending with Teppei and Seika. In the meantime, Vincent asks Josephine to introduce her organization, especially with Hartman dead, and she boldly tells them that she works for an organization called Truth, whose goal is to ruin Arima Group's reputation just because they hate rich people. As Yi Xin and Vincent cringe at her stupid response, Josephine calls off their operation and retreats with all her men. However, before they head out, Charlotte's captor tells her that they've hidden a timed bomb deep inside the building, and this leaves her shocked. Moments later, after they leave, Teppei and Sylvia reunite with Yi Xin and Vincent, but the moment they find out that Hartman's dead, Teppei rushes up to the 36th floor, where Charlotte is, and hugs her tightly when he finds her. After letting off the waterworks, Charlotte tells Teppei about the bomb the enemy agents planted in the building. However, before he can even react, the bomb's timer activates and sends the whole building into another blackout. Before long, Yu discovers the bombs placed throughout the building and relays the information to Ishin and the others, who are still in Seika's chopper. She then tells them that the enemy agency's virus has thrown their control system into chaos and begins blaming herself for being incompetent. But Vincent tells her to cut herself some slack, and she does. Moving on, Ishin asks what their options are, and she explains that although they have lost control of the hotel's surveillance, they know there are 5 bombs scattered throughout the building. Hearing this, Vincent warns Ishin and the others that they are finished if the bombs go off, and when Seika and Sylvia start freaking out, he tells them to stay calm. Back inside the building, Josephine approaches Teppei and Charlotte, with her army of special agents, introduce themselves as the anti-rich agency, and leaves Teppei and Charlotte to spend the rest of their night at their mercy. Moments later, Ishin, Vincent, Sylvia, and Seika arrive at Teppei's house and watch Yu try to unhack the enemy's hack to regain control of their servers. When that doesn't work, Yu tells them their last resort is to risk losing all of the Arima Group's data by reformatting their servers, including those at the hotel. After a brief silence, Ishin asks how long it will take her to regain control once the virus is removed, and she tells him 15 minutes. At that, Ishin orders her to proceed, adding that preserving the company's data is not the top priority right now, and Yu gets to work immediately. Before long, the police, along with a few other maids, figure out the locations of all the timed bombs in the building. However, with only 25 minutes left before detonation, Yu warns them they will have just a 10-minute window to defuse the bombs, since that can only happen after the reformatting is complete. She also points out that, given the placement of some of the bombs, reaching all of them in time may not be feasible for the police. So if they're going to really do this, then they need Jesus to get to the last one on time. At this juncture, Sylvia volunteers to return to the hotel room to save her fiancé, Teppei, and Seika decides to go with her. At first, Vincent refuses to let her go, given that she's his daughter, but Sylvia ultimately convinces him to let her go. Afterwards, Yu contacts Teppei, who claims to have heard everything, and urges him to defuse the last bomb on the designer shop's floor, where the police can't reach. The moment Teppei promises to get that done, Yu immediately begins formatting the entire system, doing her best to be fast. Moments later, Teppei and Charlotte run into the 2 thirsty fools who were Charlotte's captor's partners, and manage to convince the idiots to let them go, thanks to Charlotte's oversized milk jugs and slender body. Not long after, they run into a thick, steel door blocking the designer shop's floor, and try to break through it, only to fail. At this, Teppei asks Yu for a detour, but Yu says they have to break through it somehow to reach the bomb on time. Left with no other choice, Teppei tries punching, smashing, and even cutting through it with his wooden sword, but nothing works. In the meantime, As they fly back to the hotel, Seika calls Sylvia's attention, reminds her that she acknowledged Tepe as her fiancé earlier, and accuses her of trying to steal him from her. You, Charlotte, and the others. Hearing this, Sylvia tells Seika that even she does not fully understand her feelings yet, as she is only beginning to realize that she loves Tepe as deeply as she loved her late mother, and is willing to do anything to be with him. At this, Seika admits that she's also in love with Tepe, and Sylvia smiles at the thought. Around the same time, Charlotte finds a heavy-duty chainsaw at one of the stores near the steel door, and with Tepe, saws through it to get to the other side. Moments later, as Sylvia and Seika finally touch down on the hotel's roof, Yu finishes rebooting the hotel's control systems and restores power to the entire building. Following this, she immediately relays information on the bomb's whereabouts to Sylvia, Seika, Charlotte, and Tepe. But as Tepe and Charlotte race towards their bomb's location, Charlotte's captor himself spots them and shoots at them. At the very same time, the police defuse their bombs, while Sylvia and Seika mess around with their bombs, confused as anything, until Sylvia eventually gets fed up with the hubbub and just gives Seika the bomb. Meanwhile, Charlotte's captor, who missed his first shot, goes on a rant about his extreme hatred and jealousy for rich people like Tepe, who are flourishing. Once he's done, he fires his next shot at Tepe, but at the last minute, Tepe has Charlotte take cover. Then he lunges at the useless buffoon, deflecting every single bullet the entire way, until he gets close to the guy and knocks him out cold with a single punch to the cheek. Afterwards, he apologizes to Charlotte for losing his cool and continues moving towards the next bomb with her. Around that same time, Seika freaks out and throws the bomb away as the timer nears 0. Thankfully, before it hits the ground and explodes anyway, Sylvia cuts the red wire with her sword and somehow manages to disarm the whole bomb. Relieved, Seika asks how she knew she was to cut the red wire, and Sylvia says she figured it must be the red one since she's currently wearing red underwear. Elsewhere, Tepe and Charlotte find their bomb on the designer shop's floor, but since it's already too late to try to disarm it, Tepe throws it down the hotel's dust chute and lets it explode there. With the last bomb taken care of, the attack on the Arima Hills hotel ends, and Ishin thanks Yu, her maids, and also the whole police team for the help rendered. However, as Charlotte, Seika, Sylvia, and Tepe meet up at the hotel's forecourt to celebrate their success, Sylvia breaks the bad news about Hartman to Charlotte, and the poor girl is immediately thrown into despair. However, rather than breaking down, Charlotte chooses to respect Hartman's decision to sacrifice himself to save Vincent and Ishin, and admits that she has finally fallen in love with him. After a brief silence, a white limo suddenly pulls up at the hotel's forecourt, and the chauffeur, claiming to be filling in for Alfred, steps out and urges Charlotte to get in so he can take her back to her mansion. After getting in and driving off, Sylvia and the others reflect on what Charlotte told them about her feelings for Hartman and ultimately conclude that she forced herself to say all that without realizing that the chauffeur is not who they think he is. About 30 minutes later, Tepe's limo pulls up to the same forecourt, and Yu, Ishin, and Vincent walk out to greet Tepe and the girls. After the niceties, Ishin thanks everyone for going out of their way to protect Arima Hill, and then adds that a horse carriage from Hazelrink, Charlotte's country, will soon arrive to take Charlotte back to her mansion. Confused, Tepe and Sylvia tell him that a chauffeur had come earlier and picked Charlotte up in a limo. But just then, Vincent tells them that he had only contacted Alfred to pick her up. Hearing this, Tepe and the girls immediately gasp in shock as the harsh reality dawns on them. Tepe immediately rushes forward, as if he were going to meet up with. But unfortunately, their worst fears are correct. Charlotte has been kidnapped. Meanwhile, Charlotte is still in the car, tearing up as she quietly mourns Hartman's death, when the chauffeur suddenly stops the limo and lets Josephine in. At first, Charlotte is confused, but when Josephine refers to the chauffeur as Hartman, her confusion turns to shock as he removes the beret he had been wearing and has Josephine drug her. Later that night, everyone returns to their various homes, with Sylvia sword training in the rain, Seika getting sad, and poor Tepe just sulking as he recalls all the wonderful memories he shared with Charlotte during their short time together. Soon after, he crashes out on himself for being powerless at such a crucial time, and recalls the moment they found out that Hartman had been behind the whole setup the entire time. Naturally, they were all shocked to find out that Hartman didn't die from Josephine's gunshot. However, to avoid losing morale, Ishin told them to suck it up, and had Vincent warn Tepe and the girls not to try to save Charlotte, as it had now become an international matter. Now, Tepe is between a rock and a hard place, as the poor guy doesn't even know what to do. He takes out a family photo he took with his biological parents when they were still alive and stares at it, recalling his promise to Charlotte during their Ferris wheel ride, never to forget her. The following day at school, Tepe rides his bike to the exact spot in the forest where he and Charlotte fell and had their first meeting, and relives all the first memories he has of her: the forest encounter, the classroom incident, and even the moment he found her on the 36th floor of the hotel. Upon reliving all the emotions they shared that night, Tepe finally realizes that he has a deeper connection with Charlotte than he thought. Hours later, Charlotte wakes up on a fancy royal train on a trip somewhere and finds Hartman sitting across her, just smiling like Loki from Temu and calling her his fiancée. Confused, she asks Hartman how he's still alive, but Hartman ignores the question and tells her that his true goal is to murder Tepe and crush the Arima family, all just to drive Ishin to despair. Hearing this, Charlotte asks him if the blackout at the hotel was his doing, but when Hartman confirms that it was, she gasps in shock and asks why he did it. In response, Hartman tells her he's trying to disgrace Ishin in front of the whole world and strip him of everything for his political agenda. When Charlotte tries asking him what the agenda is, the useless scumbag leaves and hands her over to the two fools, thirsting for her thick pleasure pillows and plush cake back at the hotel. After exchanging pleasantries, Charlotte coerces them into untying her and serving her takoyaki. The following day, Yu discovers that Charlotte is being held on her country's royal train and is currently being transported to Russia, and immediately relays the information to Sylvia. After confirming the information's authenticity, Sylvia considers calling Tepe to help out, but unfortunately, Tepe is down and out like a light. Later that evening, when Tepe returns to school with his bike, Seika boycotts him at the entrance of the social club building, trash-talks him for skipping class and looking down, and asks if he's found a way to save Charlotte. When Tepe tells her there's nothing they can do, Seika flares up and accuses him of being a coward for choosing to do nothing like a good boy. Then she kisses him and confesses her feelings to him. While Tepe stares at her in complete shock, Sylvia shows up, and Seika takes a few steps back, so that Sylvia can beat some sense into his logic-resistant brain. After crashing out at him, Sylvia expresses her disappointment in Tepe for being weak and tells him she'll return to her country to rescue Charlotte, since she'll be stopping over at Hazel Rink, with or without his help. After saying all that, she and Seika leave, leaving the guy sulking even harder. But behind closed doors, they meet with Yu and ask her to comfort Tepe for them while they are away. Although Yu is a little nervous about it, she makes her way to Tepe's room, where she finds him lying on his bed, sulking, places his head between her legs, and assures him that they still have another chance to save Charlotte. Comforted by her gentleness, Tepe begs Yu to let him lie his head between the promised land a little longer, so he can find the courage he needs to man up and save Charlotte. Later that night, Josephine is seen conducting a hands-on session with herself, with her milk jugs bulging out of her bathrobe, as Hartman just sits there, watching her do her thing. After reaching Cloud 9 and coming back, she tries asking Hartman to join her in the next round, so they can get their happy endings, but Hartman leaves her to go to sleep. Meanwhile, Charlotte is seen playing cards with the two fools guarding her, when she remembers that she hasn't taken a bath yet. Since they still have a long way to go, she pressures them into letting her take a bath in their shower, and the two idiots immediately rush to prepare one for her. Elsewhere, Sylvia meets with Vincent to seek his permission to let her go with him to save Charlotte. At first, Vincent refuses to let her risk her life, but when Sylvia tells him she intends to use this to save their country, and that Maria will go with her, he ultimately agrees to let them save Charlotte. Later that night, while Charlotte's busy showering, Josephine walks into the bathroom, grabs her right milk jug, and squeezes it really hard, as she warns Charlotte not to get carried away from the situation she's in. When Charlotte refuses to fold, Josephine returns to Hartman, who just sits on their bed, enjoying his drink, as he waits for Tepe to fall into his trap by trying to save Charlotte. The following day, Tepe meets with Ishin at his villa for their final meeting before he runs off to save Charlotte. After some small talk about his mother and father's love story, Ishin urges Tepe to open the package he got for him earlier. When Tepe does, he finds $1 million neatly stacked inside the fabric, and is shocked by how small that money looks, seeing as this is his first time seeing that much cash. Although he's right, Ishin still reminds him how ordinary money is, and then he goes off telling him a story about how to understand money. After the mini lesson, he gives Tepe a handcrafted katana from his steel industry, and assures Tepe that if he uses it correctly, then he can cut through anything, even steel. Satisfied with his grandfather's speech, Tepe receives the katana with honor, sheathes it, and leaves for practice. Afterwards, Yu shows up, confused and worried sick about Tepe, but rather than pestering her about it, Ishin draws her closer, hugs her like his own daughter, and urges her to do what her heart tells her to. A few days later, Tepe gets to the airport to board his grandpa's private jet to Firmish, Sylvia's home country. While he waits for takeoff, Seika shows up with her striped undies, looking all embarrassed and nervous, and tries to be that sweet, loving, and caring lover to Tepe. However, Tepe tells her that he likes her harsh personality more, and this leaves Seika very embarrassed and confused, as it makes her feel like an inconsolable jerk. Nonetheless, when she finally calms down, she asks Tepe if he would also go this far to save her if she were abducted, but before Tepe can respond, she immediately brushes it off and hugs him tightly. Seconds later, Tepe turns back to leave. However, before he gets far, he assures Seika that he would go this far to save her if she were the one kidnapped, then walks away, leaving her love-struck by his sheer aura. Moments later, after Tepe's plan takes off, Yu, who's also on the flight, contacts Vincent on the official inter-country channel, fills him in on all the intel she's been able to gather so far, and asks for help from Firmish's cavalry to intercept the train before it gets to Russia. Once Vincent authorizes their request, Yu asks for Alfred's help to teach them the layout of the train, and Alfred immediately hops on board. A few hours later, after Tepe and Yu touch down in Firmish, Sylvia approaches them while they sightsee the medieval-looking country along with Maria, and reveals that she's already the new captain of their cavalry unit, so they don't need to worry about any hiccups on their end. Not long after, Vincent also shows up and welcomes them to Firmish by inviting them to a night party they're holding soon. Later that night, while the party is in full swing, Tepe has some alone time with Sylvia on a random balcony. There, they discuss her father's views on parties, after which Sylvia switches to her mother and her way of life back when she was still alive. Soon after, she shows Tepe her mother's picture on the locket her father gave her, and Tepe throws her off her feet with a sharp compliment. As the emotional tension between them rises, Sylvia suddenly recalls their first sparring match and suggests they do a little spar, since it's been a long time. Tepe naturally agrees to this, but when he loses to Sylvia for the second time in a row, she calls off their engagement, claiming that she's not interested in marrying a man who's lost to her twice, and then she kisses him on the lips for several seconds. The following morning, Yu, Vincent, Alfred, Tepe, and Sylvia all gather for a briefing on the current situation with Charlotte's royal train. Based on what they've noticed so far, it seems like their window of opportunity is closing, as the train is about to cross Japan's border to get to Firmish. So to avoid wasting time, they immediately get to planning their attack. At around noon, Sylvia gathers a team of her strongest fighters and rides with them to the top of the hill along the railway Charlotte's train is supposed to pass through. However, before doing anything rash, Sylvia radios the train's comms, tells them about the situation at hand, and warns them to stop the train immediately or face the consequences. When Hartman refuses to heed their warning, Sylvia kickstarts Operation Save Charlotte, and almost immediately, one of their bikers gets close to the train. Upon seeing this, Hartman, who couldn't see the rider's face due to the helmet he has on, figures that the rider must be Tepe, so he orders his men to go full blast to crack his skull open. Around that same time, Charlotte finds out from the two losers guarding her that an unidentified motorbike is chasing the train, and immediately rushes to the door to check it out, thinking the rider was Tepe. With time running out, Hartman's soldiers open fire on the bike rider, while Sylvia and her minions blast a hole in one of the train's cars. Seconds later, Alfred removes his helmet, revealing that he's the rider and not Tepe, but rather than thanking him for coming to help her, Charlotte is disappointed. Soon enough, Alfred jumps into the train and takes down Hartman's, but as he progresses further in, Tepe jumps into the hole in the train car while it's moving, takes out the train's driver, slows it down, and buys Sylvia enough time to infiltrate the train. Seeing this, Hartman orders Josephine to retake the control room, and continues smiling like an evil blonde Patrick Bateman. Moments later, Josephine captures Charlotte, takes her to Tepe, and blackmails him. In that split second of confusion, she pushes Charlotte to Tepe, who's literally standing at the edge of the front car's door, and holds them at gunpoint. However, as she's about to pull the trigger, Hartman shows up behind her and shoots her 3 times, unaliving her, as he claims he's just tying up loose ends. Following this, he rants about his younger days as a poor church rat and a pickpocket who stole from the rich, until one day, when Ishin caught him and humiliated him, as he should, in front of everybody. Apparently, this immature idiot held a grudge against Ishin for slamming some sense into his thieving butt back then, and became rich and famous, even going as far as arranging his marriage to Charlotte, all just to get back at Ishin and destroy him. As he continues yapping about how he built the nuclear facility, he separates their car from Alfred and Sylvia's, and starts blaming Tepe for foiling his plans at the last minute. Noticing his distraction, Tepe stabs the guards and fights off Hartman, but amid the hubbub, Charlotte loses her balance and risks falling off the train. Unfortunately, as Tepe grabs onto her, Hartman shoots him off the train and pulls Charlotte back in. Shortly after pushing Tepe out, Hartman asks Charlotte what she thinks he should do next, but as she's about to respond, she notices Josephine's body twitching and realizes she's actually still alive. Soon after, Hartman cuts her restraints, claims that he only did their country a favor by defeating the heir of the Arima group, and then tells Charlotte that he'll blame Tepe for her kidnapping. Shocked, Charlotte tells him that people won't believe his lies, but Hartman assures her that it's easy to make the masses believe whatever they want to believe, as long as it fits their narrative. Even still, Charlotte refuses to cave into Hartman's ideal, as she tries to talk some sense into Hartman's deranged mind. Unfortunately, this piece of trash is long gone already, so he just ignores her ramblings and tells her he's sticking to his ideals. At this point, Charlotte realizes it's no use trying to reason with him, so she presents herself as the official princess of Hazelrink and humbly requests that Hartman at least treat Josephine, seeing as the useless scumbag is still alive. When Hartman declines, Charlotte reminds him that Josephine is in love with him. But even still, Hartman tells her he won't lift a finger to help her. With time running out, Charlotte carries Josephine on her back and takes her to the in-situ medical station to get her treated. Meanwhile, Tepe wakes up from a strange dream about seeing his deceased parents in the afterlife and finds himself with Sylvia and Alfred as they continue chasing the train. Thankfully, Hartman's bullet only grazed his head, so Tepe is fine. But when he hurries them to catch up with the train quickly, Alfred tells him they can't go any faster because there are way too many people on the bike. With this, Tepe has Alfred get off the bike and continues riding it with Sylvia behind him. Around that same time, Charlotte places Josephine on a random chair in another car, confused on how to treat her, when her two thirsty guards suddenly show up, claiming that they went to medical school in Venezuela and offering to help her treat the wounded lady. As Charlotte enlists their help, Tepe contacts Yu when he realizes that he's slowly losing the train, and tells her to give him a shortcut he can pass to get to the train faster. Without wasting any time, Yu gives him a sharp route that'll get him to the train directly. But as Tepe follows it, one of the guards immediately notices him coming and rushes further in to inform Hartman. In the meantime, as Charlotte's guards tend to Josephine's wounds, she asks them why they left the university and became criminals. They explain that they were struggling financially, which makes Charlotte feel sorry for them and apologize for being useless. As the treatment continues, she suddenly hears a guard outside shouting that Tepe is back and immediately rushes out of the carriage to see him, only for Hartman to show up and slowly follow after her. Moments later, Tepe gets the bike close to the train car, where Hartman's currently holding Charlotte hostage, has Sylvia take over the bike, and forces his way to the car with his sword. Seeing this, Hartman gets distracted, so Charlotte slips and runs away. However, rather than worrying over her, he ignores her and urges his men to focus on finding and murdering Tepe instead. Soon enough, Tepe severs the train's front car from the others again, sending most of the guards away, and rushes to the inner cabin, where he spots Hartman holding Charlotte hostage. Seeing him, Hartman holds him at gunpoint and asks how he survived his first shot. When Tepe tells him that his comrade saved him, Hartman clenches his fist on the trigger and gets himself ready to shoot. At this point, Tepe knows that attacking him head-on would be stupid, so he switches to the infamous talk no jutsu instead, and spends a long 30 minutes trash-talking Hartman and re-explaining Ishin's scolding to him back then, all just to make him change his ways. In the end, Hartman gets so pissed at Tepe's words that he activates the bomb he previously set on top of the train and blasts a hole through it. As their cabin slowly gets engulfed by fire, Tepe grabs Charlotte and urges Hartman to save himself as well. However, rather than doing so, this useless scumbag admits to Tepe that he was the one who murdered his parents, fully expecting Tepe to fold and start crying. Unfortunately for him, Tepe has matured and grown past that, so he tells Hartman that he's made his peace with their deaths. Hartman tries one more time to shoot him, but this time, Tepe lunges at him in a split second and slaps the gun out of his hand with his katana. Following this, he gives Hartman one more chance to be a better person and admit that he was wrong. But when Hartman continues spewing rubbish, Tepe punches him in the mouth. Not long after, the train derails and blows up. But at the last minute, Tepe and Charlotte get thrown several feet into the air and land on Sylvia's bike, while Hartman lands on Alfred, who throws him into a river. With the train destroyed and Hartman out of the picture, the great ordeal ends, and Vincent informs Ishin about it. Moments later, when Sylvia stops their bike, Charlotte latches onto Tepe and repays him for saving her by riding his Coctopus Prime and giving him a sloppy toppy he'll never forget. Later that day, Seika receives the good news that Teppei and Charlotte are okay, so she relays it to her students at the social club and resumes being herself again. A few days later, Teppei and his new girlfriends attend a social club party together. Seika gets to dance with the fool first, then Sylvia, then Charlotte, and finally, Yu, as they all live happily ever after. This brings us to the end of the video. What are your thoughts on this recap? Do you think Hartman should be given a second chance, or did he get what he deserved? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want more anime recaps like these, watch this video instead.